Warning, the following video may contain graphic puppet-on-puppet violence. Viewer discretion is advised. Hold on to your heads because we have the greatest show about puppets? No. Yes, it's been 37 years since Jim Henson's The Dark Crystal terrified an entire generation of children, and Netflix has spared no expense in this modern-day version.
God.
In this video, we're going to be taking a deep dive into The Dark Crystal Age of Resistance, its ending, and what it could mean for Season 2. So grab your dual glaives, because here we go. The Dark Crystal's climax deals predominantly with the clash between the Skeksis and Gelflings. Rhian, who's voiced by the Kingsman's Taron Egerton, tries to calm Deet before the impending battle, but Deet turns away from him after they hold hands. This is a bit weird since they almost got it on a few episodes ago.
I think your rump dress is quite lovely.
But knowing what happened to Deet last episode, you can see why she turned away. In episode 8, the Sanctuary Tree passed on its powers to Deet, after Nurlox, who had succumbed to the Darkening, ate away at him. As the Sanctuary Tree said, the Darkening cannot be destroyed. Like all energy, it can only be transferred.
If the Darkening can't be destroyed, then how do I defeat it?
Like all energy, it can only be transferred.
This idea of transferring energy is pivotal to the lore of the Dark Crystal, and will come into play more later on in the episode. It's also important to note that when Deet took on the Sanctuary Tree's power, she experienced glimpses of the future, and these glimpses offer us valuable clues as to what might happen in Season 2. For example, we have this image of Deet sitting on the Skeksis' Emperor's throne, likely hinting that she may switch sides if the Darkening takes too big a hold over her. We also get this shot of a mother, perhaps it's Brea, holding a child, which is a throwback to the 82 Dark Crystal, hinting that Brea gives birth to either Jen or Kira from that film. Now, this is a good time to say that if you haven't seen my video on the 1982 film, I'll leave a link in the description, because I go into great detail over the lore of the Skeksis, Mystics, and the last of the Gelflings.
I wish I'd never heard of this shard.
Came up with a handful of great...
But moving on, in the background we get our first glimpse of the Garthim, who we see make an appearance at the end of episode 10. In Age of Resistance, we essentially get their origin story, learning that the scientists created them using a combination of Arathim and Grunak parts. We get this shot, which seems to be a recreation of the 1982 climax, where the Gelfling Jen puts the crystal shard piece into the Crystal of Truth. But the weird thing is, unlike the real version, Jen is the only one here. There should be Skeksis everywhere. Finally, we get this close-up of Deet affected by the Darkening, which we'll see become a reality at the end of the season. This prophecy, however, shouldn't be taken at face value, since the title of this episode is called Prophets Don't Know Everything, so what we're seeing isn't necessarily set in stone. Going back earlier in the episode, we'll see this purple energy course through her veins. She doesn't want to touch Rhian because she's afraid it may transfer to him, not because she's disinterested. Oh, and before I forget, Deet is voiced by Natalie Emmanuel from Game of Thrones.
This is not going to end well.
Meanwhile, in the Crystal Castle, the Emperor has a trick up his sleeve for the upcoming battle. He's been able to harness part of the Darkening's power through a crystal affixed to his scepter. It's important to note here how the Darkening came about in the first place. Years ago, a battle between the Mystics and the Skeksis resulted in a shard from the Crystal of Truth being broken off. This imbalance slowly started the Darkening, a process which has rapidly been growing since the Skeksis started draining the Gelflings of their essence.
I beg you to reconsider. The more essence we consume, the weaker the crystal grows, the greater the imbalance. The faster the Darkening spreads!
There is no Darkening!
But why exactly do the Skeksis need the Gelfling's essence? Why now? Well, since the corruption of the Crystal of Truth, its energy, which the Skeksis have been feeding off of, has been growing weaker. The more they take from the crystal, the less it gives.
But the more we take, the less it gives. All our survival is at stake.
This is why the scientist has been tasked with finding a new method of immortality, a method which is later tried on its first test subject, Mira. Back in Stonewood, Rhian prepares for battle by sharpening his dual glaive, the ancient weapon according to Skekgra and Ergo that can stop the Skeksis for good. This glaive was forged in the deepest fires of the inner sun and carries the spirit of Thra.
When wielded by Gelfling, holds the power to unite the 7 clans and defeat the Skeksis.
Rhian was able to gather the 2 pieces of the glaive. One was hidden inside Madra Argot's staff, while the other was put inside the crucible in Stonewood. The glaive also happened to last be wielded by Rhian's father, Ordon, in the great battle between Gelflings and the Garthim, a battle which, ironically, was won with the help of the Skeksis. This is how the Ascendancy was cast out from the caves of Grot, and how that land was later given to the Gelflings. In a pep talk to the Resistance, Rhian explains,
I'm done with running.
I'll die where I stand before I run again.
One of the recurring themes for Rhian this season was running away. Some may even call it cowardice. When Mira was being drained, he ran. When Gurjin was captured, he ran. His father sacrificed himself so he could run away. But not this time. The scientist, having been ordered to stay at the castle away from battle, tries his hand at sitting on the throne when the hunter comes back to life. Last episode's attempt to infuse the hunter's body with Aughra's essence seems to have worked, and the irony that he's held up like a puppet here isn't lost on us. As we'll later find out, Aughra's sacrifice was all part of her plan, but it also completes her redemption arc. Aughra feels responsible for the Skeksis' takeover of Thra. She was the one who gave the Skeksis the Crystal of Truth in exchange for the Orrery, this mechanical model of the solar system. She spent years searching the cosmos and learning from the technology given to her by the Skeksis, that it was only when Thra was facing great harm that she was awoken from her dreamlike state. Aughra offers her life in exchange to free the Gelflings, but if there's anything we know about the Skeksis, it's that they almost always go back on their word. Brea and Celadon make up, even though Celadon should probably be tried for war crimes. We then get to the major battle this entire season has building up to, which starts with the general taking on Rhian and his dual glaive. The general is ultimately stabbed by Rhian, but here's the interesting thing. What appears to be the general's essence, or at least part of it, is sucked into the crystal of the dual glaive. Now, the general doesn't die here, it only happens a bit later when the Chamberlain does the deed, so it's uncertain whether this energy transference was fully complete. Regardless, this is some definite Season 2 setup, and the power of the crystal shard to transfer energy will undoubtedly come into play next season, perhaps even helping transfer the darkness from Deet. Another big question mark is if the general is actually dead. He's alive in the 1982 movie, which is set after the events of Age of Resistance, so it's entirely possible that this energy transference was successful and some part of the general lives within that crystal. How he'll come back to life is anyone's guess, but with Aughra coming back from the dead, anything is possible. Also, did Rhian just forget about his girlfriend Mira? Awkward. We get a better look at the crystal shard after Brea picks it up from the shattered dual glaive. This is the same crystal shard Jen will use in the movie to heal the Crystal of Truth, and the same one which will come into the possession of Aughra after the Gelfling genocide. In the battle, the hunter grabs Rhian and destroys the dual glaive, but before he can finish the job on Rhian, Archer, the hunter's mystic opposite, kills himself, thus killing the hunter. Again, if you want to know more about how this process works, check out my other Dark Crystal video. With the hunter killed, Aughra's essence is reborn, and the 7 clans of the Gelfling show up in the nick of time to take on the Skeksis. Not only that, but the Garthim have also joined their side, after they found out that they were double-crossed by the Skeksis, who gave them back the Cave of Grot, only to find that it was infested with darkness. With no alternative, the Emperor uses his staff, which contains the power of the Darkening, which Deet is able to hold off and ultimately blow Awkwafina's head off. This causes the Skeksis to run away in fear. With the battle won, a few questions remain as to what will happen next season. Chiefly among them, what the heck has happened to Deet? We see her walk off into the distance, away from Rhian, likely for his own good. She's infected, as is evidenced by the dying plants around her, and likely doesn't want anyone around her. My guess is that the only thing preventing her from being overtaken by the darkness was the power given to her by the Sanctuary Tree. We also don't know if Celadon will remain the Almandra after what she put her people through. Hupp seems to have found found the yellow trinket which is able to conjure lore, so we'll probably see more of that in season 2 and likely Hup's ascendance to a full-on paladin. The final scene, however, looks pretty grim for the Skeksis. They're petrified that their days are numbered until the scientist reveals his newest creation, the Garthim. The Garthim army was used in the Dark Crystal movie to undertake the annihilation of the Gelflings, so season 2 will likely see them building this army up and utilizing it. There's also the question of the crystal shard that Brea picks up and how it eventually gets into the hands of Aughra along with several other fake crystals. The Skeksis will eventually find out about this shard and hide fake ones to throw the Gelflings off. We also haven't visited the ruins which Jen and Kira find in the movie, the ones that reveal to them the prophecy that will lead to the downfall of the Skeksis. Plan on finding more about this next season. But I want to hear your thoughts about this truly awesome season in the comments below. If you haven't already, please do check out my other Dark Crystal video. Make sure to like and subscribe with the bell on because I have more breakdown videos on the horizon. You can also feel free to follow me on Twitter at ThinkStoryYT. And until next time, remember, Daddy loves you very much.